I never start from the pickups. The pickups, they are at the end.
Yeah.
It's the Zen moment after all the bad words when you have to finish to paint. At the end, you stay there 10,000
Wines.
wines. And then, yes.
I'm very pleased to have Enrico Di Donato as my guest on this week's episode of Life with Strings Attached. Enrico Di Donato began his career as a structural engineer, collaborating with renowned architects like Renzo Piano and Arata Isozaki on innovative building designs using materials such as steel, concrete, and glass. After years of exploring composite materials for seismic reinforcement and authoring publications on the subject, Enrico shifted his focus to lutherie, combining his scientific expertise with artistic craftsmanship. His Hasaki electric guitar, which is celebrating its 10th anniversary in 2025, has been featured at prestigious events at Art Basel, the Venice Biennale, and the Boutique Guitar Showcase at NAMM. For Enrico, the electric guitar is not merely a tool, it's an evolving fusion of art and science. I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with Enrico Di Donato. I hope that you do as much as I did. Enrico, ciao.
Hi, Jamie.
Great to see you.
Ciao, Jamie.
Ciao.
Have you learned a lot of Italian words?
Yeah, I can say like due cappuccini, per favore, cornetto crema, tagliatella.
All the fundamentals. So you are okay with all the fundamentals? Okay, nice.
Sì, tutto bene?
Tutto bene here. Tutto bene, thank you. And you?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. Very, very good, very good. Yeah.
Nice.
Great to see you. And how's the family? Laura and the kids, all's well?
Family is fine. Yesterday was Giacomo's birthday, so 11 years old.
11?
Yes.
Wow.
And now it's even better because they are outside the house. So I'm, as you know, tranquillo. Really dedicated to what I love to do.
Yes. Wonderful. Great. Good to hear.
Yes.
And so, it's been a little while since we've seen each other, but not too long, I think in the springtime. But bring me up to date. What's going on over there these days? I see some cryptic pictures on Instagram every once in a while, just details, never any whole guitars and such. What's happening with you?
Okay. Probably you're meaning about the different shapes, a little bit bigger, and the gold top.
Yeah.
That one?
Well, whatever you like to talk about. Whatever you...
No.
Yeah.
whatever you want. I mean, no, that one is the last one. It was shipped, so I have it here. I'm very happy about it because it was. I mean, it's not my idea. The original idea. It was a customer request, and at the beginning, it was quite strange because I have to change a lot of things from my original model. So I have to augment the dimensions, make some adjustment. It becomes more a jazzy guitar because it's inspired by the Gibson 295. Okay, because it's a tribute to a guitarist, to Geordie Walker of the Killing Joke band, who passed away almost a year ago.
Okay.
And I have to say that even if it was out of the comfort zone request, the result was really, really interesting. I mean, the augmented, apart from the the visual result. That is subjective, okay. But from the sonic result was very, very interesting.
Okay.
So this one, it's a real archtop, real archtop guitar, electric guitar. Yes.
Was it actually the dimensions of a 295? Like, is it that big?
Yes, the dimension. It's the dimension, the thickness of the body, and in this case, also a modification on the pickups, and with other types of wire, and I mean, I have to investigate better on the bridge, because the bridge could make even a more jazzy result. I'm working on it. So let's prepare for the next boutique guitar showcase tour.
Yeah, great. I have so many questions about this because, one, to achieve a jazzy guitar, and I'm going to make all the archtop makers angry here, you have to make your guitar less efficient. You have to make
yes,
You have to reduce the efficiency of energy transfer to get something that approximates a jazz guitar. And you have a structure in your instruments which you have developed this aluminum frame with a very specific placement of nodal points. And a central column, as you described, which could remain the same. But then, did you have to cast or carve a new frame and shift the nodal points, or was the inefficiency of where they were to the benefit, so you didn't have to do it?
No. In this case, I maintain the original aluminum frame.
Yes.
So this one was after the discussion with the customer to maintain also a precise price.
Yes.
Because I have to change everything if I have also to change the aluminum frame. But in this case, I mean, you are right. The nodal points allows to have a wider external, let's say so, external surface. So the damping of the entire system is different. It has a bigger damping, and the result is, as you said, as a more jazzy sound. Let's say less efficient system, even if it's
no. So let's help our listeners here, because we kind of jumped right into familiar territory for you and I. And let's, before the interview starts, we always read your bio. And so they know that you are a structural engineer with a history and such. They already know some of your background this way, who are listening now. But Enrico also participated in a panel discussion we had at the Venice Biennale on the materiality of sound. And in this conversation, we had, engineers and neuroscientists, architects, people from many different fields discussing materiality and how motion and time and perception come together. And so Enrico and I just pulled bits of information from our previous conversations and dropped them on our poor listeners who are wondering what the hell's going on. And so let's bring that up to speed as quickly as possible. And so the Di Donato guitar, for those of you who are listening without first looking at his instruments, are really wonderfully designed in a structural engineering way that was here on this side. Some construction on the street, possibly. Not the first time we've had an audio interruption with you and I. It's usually church bells that are happening. I think in a few of our interviews, the church bells go off and we have to stop.
Yes. Probably in Padua, in the center of Padua.
In Padua, in Longarone, in Venice. Every time you and I record an interview, there are church bells going off.
Yes. The best. Sorry for the parenthesis. The best one was probably 2 years ago with my cat. I don't know if you remember the cat and interrupted the connection that time. I
Yes,
still
yes,
remember
yes.
it. Was
All right. So sorry
embarrassing.
to our listeners. There, I don't even know if you heard it, but there was a very large buzzing sound, which sounds to me like someone is drilling into the structure of this old stone building I'm in. So hopefully it's not a big deal, and we'll move on. And that's an interesting part about energy transfer in stiffness of material. That's exactly what's happening. That sound could have happened on the other side of the building, but because we're in a stone building from the 15th century, we hear it as if it's right beside us. Very interesting. And so, anyways, back to Enrico's guitars. And Enrico, actually, why am I doing this? You should do this. Explain to our audience a moment about your guitars, and then and your structure, the specific structure that you've made and your thinking behind it, and then we'll be able to pull them along into what happened when we expanded the size of the top with a 295 inspired guitar. So tell us about your very interesting and innovative design and the inspiration behind it.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, I have also to point out that next year it will be the 10th anniversary of this model. So 10 years passed from the first prototype that I presented. And okay, the idea is that I try to create this sort of spinal tap, because I defined the spinal tap of the guitar that's made out of aluminum, so in a way that it's quite stiff. And this frame has four. I mean, I defined the nodal points, but they are the point where the body that's the shape of the guitar is connected. Only in these 4 points. And this is related to the some experiment that was made centuries ago by Chladni, physicist, on the vibration of the membranes, okay, according to different frequencies. And I have also the pickups, the neck, everything is detached from this body. So it's a sort of a membrane that's over these 4 points, it's free to vibrate. The only thing that touch this body, this membrane, is the bridge that transfer the vibrations from the strings to the body. So defined.
Yeah.
And as you said, I saw from the beginning the connection between the body and the neck, one of the fundamental point, apart from the position of these 4 points. And in this, I concentrated a lot of the mass of the entire guitar. And I try to develop a system of regulation of the neck in this point. So it was a way to mix 2 goals that I have from the beginning in the design. And this system allows me to adjust the action, the height of the strings from the neck. The neck goes up and down. This is absolutely no revolution. It was also present in instruments centuries ago.
Yes.
Obviously, with different material, with different solution, but
the function.
It's yes, it's something that already existed. And I prefer to maintain the bridge, a very simple object, one piece of the same material, to have two, let's say, probably it's too much, but to try to be conscious of what the strings transfer to the body. The more I can, obviously. And so I started with different materials, and I found that this one piece of aluminum works very well with this design, with my design. So more or less, this is the original idea. I started also making some simulation of having some virtual model of the guitar, but they didn't work. I mean, there's a lot of at the end useless work behind it. You have a lot of colors. You have a lot of nice movements. All the agent values. It's cool if you have to do a presentation, but at the end, really, you have to do some real experience about it, because it's not something that existed before. So you have to adjust the model. You can have all the colors that you want, all the values that you want, but if it's not, if the model has not correspondence with the real thing, is useless. And it's very easy to have useless data, because you can change some condition of restraints, some the elasticity of some elements, and it's a waste of time.
And then everything is wrong. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
yes,
all right. So let's try and bring our listeners back in on this. So the simulations that Enrico is talking about end up looking something like a topographical map, where there's different colors representing the altitude on a map, but in this case, it's representing the amount of movement that's happening within that particular piece or that particular zone.
Yes, movement data.
Yeah. So it looks very pretty, but maybe is not actually accurate or useful, I think is what you're saying. And you have to ultimately translate it from the theoretical into the practical, into the real world. And when you moved it into the real world, you found that maybe it's better just to continue to work within the real world, and that the theoretical maybe wasn't as useful in that scenario as you thought, which of course comes down to, you can get statistical results, but it all matters on which questions you asked in the first place, and that the question is the most important thing, and which question are we asking? And, any theorist, stresses a great deal over, are we asking the right questions?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to have a goal, something, and it was more related, not to the eyes, obviously, but what at the end I heard from the practical results.
Yeah. And statistics. This is something that we live in a day and age where we have developed so much trust in the systems, the average person, that statistics are often just cited but not tested, right? And so it's very easy to come up with the results you want if those statistics are just in line with what you want to have the results of. And I think Bertrand Russell said it really well about 100 years ago when he was asked for future advice for future generations 100 years later, our time now. He said, consider the facts, just the facts, not what you wish were the facts, not what would be beneficial should they be the facts, but just the facts and what the facts bear out. And often you'll find that people cite information to you and you just test it just a little bit and it falls apart. It just completely falls apart. But there's this strong power these days. I believe in science. I believe in data. And the thing is, of course, science is the study of what is. We all should believe in what is. Absolutely. But every scientist tests. And it's the facts until someone proves it wrong. And that's science. We're testing it because we couldn't get a different result. But if we change the question, all of a sudden we can find that we do get a different result. And that's really important. And there's a lot of scientific work being done in the guitar today. And a lot of it, I wonder about, are we asking the right questions? Because I've also seen people who are proclaiming scientific advancements and they understand how to make predictions. But when you play the guitar, I think we're missing some data. We're not asking all the right questions. We might be asking some of the right questions, but maybe not all of the right questions. Yeah.
All the right questions, yes. But this is, as you said, a general problem today, this one. And I'm a little bit afraid of the young generations about this. The fact that they have to ask to themselves the right questions, and not accept the reality as is proposed, obviously.
Yeah. It's important to teach people how to ask questions. So, I was speaking with somebody who has an apprentice recently. They're not a guitar maker. They were in another kind of business, but they have an apprentice. And they were talking about how the apprentice is performing and what they're doing. And I said, do they know how to ask a question? She was like, I said, because that's the single most important skill I can think of in the modern world is the question. Yeah. Can you feel comfortable asking a question? Right? So a certain amount of disagreeableness, because a lot of people are afraid that they're going to look bad, that they're going to look like they don't belong, is a big part of it also, right? That's where the whole, I believe in this, we have these extremes politically happening right now, when most people are really living somewhere in the middle. They're not living on the extremes, because they're afraid to stand out. But the thing is, understanding how to ask a question, how to figure out what is the right question to be asking, and then to be able to adapt to say, okay, I've now identified I need to learn this, and then go and learn it. These are the most important skills in the modern age, because we're changing so fast. Is that I didn't send my kids to school so you can teach them what to think. I send them to school so you can teach them how to think.
Yes.
How to think is the most important.
Absolutely. Yes. Now, I was thinking also about this, the speed that we have today, and we are forced today to learn all this stuff that, it's not necessarily all useful, okay? But you have to learn all this stuff, and very quickly. And when you talked about the apprentice, I remember probably was Matsuda, or I don't know if he talked about this, or another Japanese luthier, and he said that for 5 or 6 years was in front of his master, say nothing, asking nothing, only watching what he was doing, and then he started to ask after all these years. So I don't know if it's possible today, but it's interesting also this wave of apprentice. No.
Well, I think that there's a scale that we need to talk about here, and it's a scale of time, and that is different cultures have a different sense of time. And you and I have discussed this because you toured me around a little bit around the university in Padua that you went to. And it's the second oldest university in Italy. It has more than 800 years at this point. And from someone from the New World, we celebrate buildings that are 100 years old. And you guys have buildings in Italy that are 400 years old that you're still referring to as the new building.
Yes.
Which is
no. It's true. Yes. It's a different scale of time.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and the Japanese, I think, have a very long view of time. And I don't remember where I heard it recently, but you're not the first person to bring up a Japanese apprentice to me in the recent weeks. Someone else mentioned that the idea of an apprenticeship for a Japanese person is something like 10 years. They're not expecting to be out on their own for at least a decade. And the European schools that I teach in here, many of them are like 4-year programs.
Yes.
When you go to the schools in America, they're broken up into like 6-week programs. 6-week programs, 6-month programs, maybe is like the longest program they have for you to learn to make a guitar. And I go to Hallstatt, Austria, and it's a 4-year program. I don't know how long the programs are here in Italy. There's a number of luthier schools here in Italy, but they're
at the university now. I don't know, because things are changed a lot from since I was graduated. But I remember that I had a 5 years program, and several years later they changed it to the 3 + 2 years. So after 3 years you can have a sort of degree, a short program degree. And then if you want, you can have this 2 years more to complete the program. But theoretically, after 3 years, you have completed the first part. And when I studied, it was, I don't know if I was fortunate with this or not, because at the end, when you enter in the world of the work of jobs, it's completely different. You have to apply all the stuff that you studied, but it's completely different.
Yeah. Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop is your premier fretted instrument custom case maker, and we invite you to create a musical instrument case unlike any other, one that's unique to you. Every Cedar Creek custom case is hand-built by highly skilled craftspeople using only select woods, Prominence Forge hardware, and premium instrument-friendly materials. At Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop, we are dedicated to helping you design the case of your dreams. Find out more at cedarcreekcases.com. Yeah, so the sense of time and understanding how long it is to ask a question, the development of something over time, that's interesting. But let's bring this back to your guitars for a moment, because it's that same equation of time that makes the difference with what you did on your most recent instrument. So we were trying to help customers or the listeners understand that by making a larger body within the same frame, that you had determined where the efficient points are, the nodal points. So a nodal point is a center of vibration, where it is acting most efficiently, we might say, right? Or it's like it's like a tectonic plate. The movement goes in different directions from that point, right? We can say it's a center. Is it a center of movement? It's a center of not movement. It's a center in which the movement changes direction. Interesting.
It's the fixed point of the movement. They don't move. Where
they actually don't move.
Point,
exactly, which is
they don't move.
I'm working it through in my head, right? Explaining it. I've never tried to explain a nodal point before, but the point is actually the movement is happening. You put a structure there because it's where there is the least movement, and more movement happens. It facilitates movement by placing structure there. And so what you're doing by shifting that, by making a larger body, is you're making the movement less efficient. And so we live in a world where we see more as good and less as bad, often within language. And we don't mean that when we're talking about physics and acoustics. What we're talking about when we talk about efficiency or high efficiencies, you have less interruption of the movement, which means you have very fast movement, very high frequency at this point. But that translates to what the treble frequencies for us, the high frequencies, right? And also a very quick attack because the energy is immediate. But when we talk about low efficiencies, we've reduced the speed of movement and we get more low frequencies, but also we get less attack. It takes longer time for us to perceive what's happening.
A smoother attack, yes.
Right. And so when we talk about a jazz guitar, we're talking about an instrument which had a certain amount of efficiencies to it. It had a certain characteristic to the attack. It had certain characteristics to the shape of the sound, which we call tone. And from the high efficiency instrument, which Enrico normally makes day to day with his design of the Hasaki design, you needed to actually make this less efficient to represent something more like what we call the icon of the jazz sound.
Yes, this smoother attack. I mean, as you say, the fact that it's had a bigger body, you have to imagine that there is something over these nodal points, a bigger surface that moves. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but
of course,
it's not a small. I don't remember the English name. Okay, imagine as a small beam that vibrates very quickly,
very fast. Yes,
the longer the beam is, the movement is bigger and it's lower.
Yes.
And even with this modification, I've talked also about the bridge. I want to modify the bridge, probably using different materials, also to transmit these vibrations in a less efficient way. Also to have this, I mean, yes, it's less efficient,
but less doesn't mean bad. You actually need to reduce the efficiency to achieve the result.
No. It doesn't mean bad. Okay. Absolutely. No, a different way, yes, to transmit vibrations.
You get to shape the result. That's what you're doing as the luthier, as the guitar maker. And so sometimes you realize that this part of the system is too efficient. So I'm only getting a thin sound, a high frequency response. I need to make it less efficient and get more movement happening on a bigger surface so that I can introduce the warmer sound and slow down the attack. And that's the mastery that comes in and the understanding of physics. And you explained it in a very, structural engineering kind of way. I like that.
Sorry.
No, that's one of the reasons I enjoy talking to you about these things is because of the examples you give and the language set that you give when talking about them. The examples you give are that where you have the benefit of being a structural engineer, and that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. No, and this is connected also to we made this dialogue some times ago. Also, it's something related. I was thinking about this when we say that it's not bad. It's a different way to transmit vibrations, and it's something related to the more efficient, so the perfect system that can transfer all the vibrations, or the imperfect system. And as I said you some times ago, my goal right now is to try to understand how to perfect the imperfection of these systems, because at the end, you can have you can craft a very, very efficient system, but it's not more a guitar. Probably it's not made out of wood. It's also for the pickups. We talked about the pickups, but we are trained with a sound that was made, and now it's made with imperfect materials, imperfect crafting methods. And it's really amazing, really fascinating to understand how this little imperfection can obtain this perfection to our ears.
Yes,
soul at the end.
But I don't know that I agree to the imperfect terminology. Let's discuss that for a second, because I think it was made. So when we're dealing with technology from the 1950s, and we're dealing with a mixture of wood and metal components and electronic components, also some plastic components, right? So the wood, we're dealing with the same wood. I know there's some people who will argue that the wood is so very different, but the wood was varied then, the wood is varied now, and we could work with the same piece of wood, and we can understand that to a certain amount. But what has really changed substantially is how we deal with metal. Are we casting the metal? Are we sand casting the metal? Are we centrifugally casting the metal? Are we spinning it in a centrifuge so it's tighter together? There's less pores involved, less impurities involved in it, right? Are we carving it from a solid block? Not all steel is the same. Not all aluminum is the same. And the reality is we make more pure metals, because when we call something steel or aluminum or gold, in a metallurgical sense, we say it's gold, but there's a little bit of tin or something else mixed in with it. And it takes a lot of effort to get to the most purest and remove any impurities from it. And we're better at that today than we were in the 1950s, let's say, right? Yeah. And so the quality materials that we're buying, because the materials are not made for the guitar industry. The guitar industry is such a small part of the world that the advancements that happen in metallurgy are happening for spacecraft, and they're happening for the making of iPhones and computers. They're not being made for guitars. And what happens is we get a material change. So we're not buying the same aluminum. We're not buying the same steel in the same way that we once were. And as a result, we have to change them. But it does mean that if you look at it, a metallurgist would say that the material from the 1950s was less perfect than it is today, which is why we're talking about it as an imperfect.
Yes. In that way, I mean imperfection or perfection, absolutely. Also, regarding the wire, for example, of the pickups, the wire in the 50s was insulated with materials that now are outlawed because they for the environment.
Yes,
and the consistency of this coating of the wire is absolutely totally different from today. Today we have a very precise, very well-made materials that, as you said, it's originally made for other application, also for medical,
other standards. We used to make things from copper and dump the chemicals into the river. We can't do that anymore. We shouldn't do that anymore.
No, ask for the perfection of the coating when you buy 2 kilos of wire.
Copper wire. Yeah, exactly.
Also for the magnets, the best magnets right now, I have to do this advertising space is made in China, because they are made as 50 years ago in the United States.
Yeah.
And with all the impurities, all the stuff, they are not perfect magnets.
Right.
But at the end, all these kind of imperfection make the sound different.
Yeah.
I mean, if you make a pickup with the same values technical values. I mean, apart from the number of the turns, the diameter of the wire, the magnetic power of the magnets. With modern materials, the result, it's not the same. Absolutely.
Yes. And so your task is to adjust the recipe as we go, right? I mean, you're making an arrabbiata sauce here, and the peppers you get are much too spicy. Okay, you need to have a little less. You don't just follow the recipe and say, okay, it says this many always. No. You have to taste it. You have to say, ooh, okay, maybe a little. Now we need to add a little something else and make the adjustments. And so as the evolution of guitar is happening with factors that we cannot completely control ourselves, then we have to make the adjustments as we go. And so we get better quality metals. We have to find out ways to make them somehow less efficient because we didn't want it better, but the airplane manufacturers did, or something of the sort. Yeah.
And absolutely, as I said before, just listen. Again, with our ears, without our idea or what we want to obtain, because obviously you have to have in your mind, in your ears, a target that you have to reach.
Yes.
And then to adjust for this reason, I make also my own pickups, because I started obviously with the standard models, but I have to change the dimension of the bobbin. I have to change the position of the magnets, probably to obtain also an old sound, what I found of by the records, but with the modern materials that are not the same as 70 years ago.
Yeah. Wonderful. And so have you had some unexpected inspirations from this when a material change happens, that it does something that you weren't expecting, that you weren't looking for, but you like it, and so you choose to go in that direction?
No, at the end, no. I was at the beginning, I was surprised, always talking from the sound structural point of view, from the design point of view, the importance of the neck in the design of the guitar. Neck is very, very important at the end in the sound. This one surprised me at the beginning.
Are you serious about the business of guitar? Then you need to join us on Patreon. We're building a future where guitar makers are able to live prosperous lives making instruments that inspire the musical experience, which helps to create a more beautiful world, where others who are passionate about the guitar can thrive. Those who help in the promotion and resale, trade shows, writing of books and articles are supported as a valuable part of the community. A community where we explore with curiosity and encourage those around us in their endeavors. With a community effort, we can accomplish far more than we can individually. So let's be serious about your guitar business and join us on Patreon at patreon.com/business of guitar. That's patreon.com/business of guitar. Yeah, it's actually one of the things that I think is the question that's not being asked enough right now. So there's a lot of development happening right now amongst acoustic guitars, and there's a bit of an arms race going on right now with technology. And I won't name them. Everyone knows who knows that there's a half a dozen or a dozen or maybe even 100. I don't know them all, but there's a few people at the top who are developing softwares to test wood with microphones and parameters to say, these woods have a sound rating system like this, and so you must do this to get the results you want, so on and so forth. And I think that's a good thing to pursue for sure.
Yes.
And it's mostly in the acoustic space. So and they've been doing work in this Cremona for many, many years. Although I question sometimes if the Cremonese work is more about proving why they're amazing rather than looking for the answers and the truth. They have a brand to protect, and I think that is a challenge for the science. But anyways, we'll leave that one alone for now. But there are many acoustic engineers and luthiers and such who are working in this space to understand the movements of the wood, because being an organic material, the wood varies, and not all trees are the same, of course. And the rating systems that we have are based on aesthetics, not on physical properties or performance, which is aesthetics is a physical property, but they're not based on performance. And so when you get 3 A's or 4 A's or 5A spruce top, it's how tight the grain is. But if we're looking for the sound, the single A might be the best piece of wood to use to achieve the sound.
Yes, it's not completely related. Yes.
Yeah. So there are many people who are working towards a grading system for the physics and the audible response from the wood, which is great. However, in all of the work that's happening, I only hear people talking about the top. They're not talking about the back, the sides. There's never talking about the neck. They're talking a bit about the bracing, but
or the bridge, or the bridge, the material of the bridge.
They talk a little bit about the bridge. Sometimes they add a little bit of weight or take weight off of the bridge, which of course changes the amplitude of the bridge, which is great, on an acoustic guitar top. But the point is, I just don't hear anybody. I've never seen a video of somebody taking their microphone and their camera and doing the same experiment with their neck blocks or their neck, that I see happening on the top. And I think this is a really important part of the equation, which you've just said yourself. And so I think that we're missing a lot of questions to arrive at the full set of data that we need to make a proper prediction, because it's part of a system. It's not a group of singular materials. It's a part of a system. And when you when you get too much acid because the peppers you got were a little more spicy, you have to adjust the system. Less pepper or more tomato or cream in the sauce, whatever it's going to be, you have to adjust. So the neck for you was a part of the system that made a lot more difference than you expected. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, the neck, as you said, it's however a part of the system. So it's not I was surprised at the beginning. It's not the only one, but I was surprised at the beginning the weight in the entire system of the neck. Probably for this reason, as you said, because nobody talks about the neck. I mean, it's an old old discussion about the sound of the wood. Maple sounds in this way, mahogany sounds in that way. But the first element that you have for me to consider in the guitar is the design. It's something that it's not material. It's the design. The design of the guitar is the first element from which you have to start to define an instrument, because the same materials can respond in a totally different way with different design of the guitar. So for me, apart from the various parts of the guitar, design is the start point.
And how do you define the design? What does that mean to
you? The design are the basic features of the guitars. The length, the scale length, the way the neck is attached to the body, the number of the strings, the material of the bridge, the way the bridge is made. Another underestimated part of the guitar, however, for me is the bridge. I have read and seen a lot of discussion about the nut, but not so much about the bridge. This is quite surprising because the bridge is always on.
Yes, and it's. I mean, it's parallel to the nut. I mean, if these two things, nothing else works. If these don't work, yeah.
But the bridge is quite underestimated. So I mean, and also I repeat, the target that you want to reach. You have to start from this and then to develop the design. The design, I mean, it's the addition of single features of the guitars. Then you have the materials, obviously, and so the type of woods and the pickups. Even if it's an electric guitars, I consider them at the end of the chain.
Yes.
The last, the last part. Yep. I'm one of the believer, even if I'm an engineer, and I could say no, make no difference. There would make no difference at the end. The pickups are the final part of a system, so all the rest counts. I make always the pickups at the end when I've done the acoustic part of the instruments.
Okay.
To fine-tuning the sonic result. Yes. Always. I never start from the pickups. The pickups, they are at the end.
Yeah.
It's the Zen moment after all the bad words when you have to finish the paint. At the end, you stay there, 10,000
wines.
Wines. And then, yes.
Wonderful.
Sometimes with the scatter.
Yeah.
Wow, to have this imperfection.
You should you should label this somehow like this. All these pickups are wound to my chakra. They're all wound to my personal.
Yes.
This is chakra wound pickups by Enrico Di Donato. I love it.
Yes. and it's not important though, but I want to think also about this fact that I use a mix for potting the pickups of artificial
epoxy
wax. No, it's not epoxy. I don't remember the name, but it's not important. And a natural wax, beeswax.
Yes,
because I like to have this material that has vibrated so long and so nicely with all these bees together, and it smells so good. And at the end, it works. It works because it has a quite tight point of fusion.
Yes.
So so I don't know if it makes a difference. This is
I don't know, but I can tell you that every Waldorf kid will pick up your guitar and smell it and feel like home.
Yes.
Yes.
I have all these Waldorfs kits that. Yes,
Beeswax, wool, and soup is what every Waldorf school smells like, and a little bit of wood.
Yes.
Bread. Yeah. So, anyways, that's fascinating. The wax that has been vibrated at this high frequency and very interesting.
Yes.
Are you doing this every time? Are you always using beeswax on your pickup?
Right now for probably 6 years. 6 years.
I didn't know that. That's a wonderful detail.
Yes, I don't know if it's a real difference or not. I started with obviously the chemical wax, but paraffin.
We say paraffin wax. Paraffin wax. Yeah.
Yes, paraffin wax at the beginning, the most common one, and then I try to mix. The color is different. I mean, the smell is different, and I don't know if the sonic results is different. Or I have changed also some techniques about the windings and the materials, obviously. But it's nice to have this part of nature now. This gift that the nature give you to put inside, because really it's something that has vibrated a lot.
Yes.
Okay, it's something that because it's really fascinating. I went with the kids to see some bees. I don't know, the alve.
Yeah, the honeybees, probably for
honeybees. Yes, and it's really, really fascinating world.
Yes. So there's, bees have a different relationship in physics than we are aware of for the most part. It's really fascinating how they control their environment with vibration, with sound, and even to the point of protection. When a predator comes into the beehive, they will swarm it and they will land on it and they will vibrate at a very high frequency, which creates a thermal response. And so we move this from the kinetic response of vibration into the thermal movement of energy. And they literally they overheat and bake the predator alive, or they kill it just through heat. They're not eating at it. They're not seeing it. They command the physics to move from the physical into the thermal. Which really incredible. And so, I think this bears thinking on, and I will be thinking about it now. Which is one of the reasons I love talking with you so much, is that we get into different parts of this discussion. And so, beeswax. Yeah. And, let's just deal with the, we say the elephant in the room. Do they have this phrase in Italy? When there's something that everyone knows and it's a big problem, but no one's talking about it. In English, we say there's an elephant in the room. Let's deal with the elephant in the room, that big thing that we all know, but no one wants to talk about.
Yes. It's the same. It's not the room. Generally, it's where you sell crystals, and glasses and so on. But it's the same. The animal is the same. It's the
yeah. So anyways, this whole pickup conversation is just so ridiculous to me. The fact that people are still in the modern age talking about the fact that wood doesn't matter. What is happening with the string, folks, and why do we use a magnetic pickup? Because we don't only use magnetic pickups. We use magnetic pickups. We use piezo pickups. Sometimes we use light pickups. They're rare, but what are they all doing? They are somehow interacting with the movement in time. And so these strings are passing through the magnetic field and disrupting the magnetic field, which gets translated through the copper wire out through to our amplifier, where we reconstitute that same movement. And we don't reconstitute it. We take that same movement and translate it with now a paper cone or something of the sort. We amplify it. We pass it through a whole bunch of filters. But the point is, the main element is movement in time and then perception and how we're perceiving the frequency. And so the thing that the magnetic pickup and the piezo element and the light, all of these things are interacting with the movement in time. And it's the materiality, the interaction, once we make that kinetic movement and get that string moving because we plucked it, we use a plectrum, we use it with our fingers, whatever we did to make that string move, we go from a kinetic response, which is now moving. In the case of a piezo pickup, it's pushing on the piezo, which is then kicking out an electrical charge. That's what piezos do.
Yeah.
And in the case of a magnetic pickup, it's moving through the magnetic field and disrupting it. And we're translating that disruption, but we're translating how much it's moving. And without the wood or carbon fiber or steel or aluminum, whatever material we're using is determining how that energy is moving and how that string is moving. So every single time, the movement of the string is relative to the material being used, and each piece of wood moves a little bit differently. And so pickups of every kind are related directly to the material being used. And anybody who doesn't think so, I don't know how to help them anymore. I just say, if you can't understand it, you can't hear it, that's okay. Go take a physics class. Learn something about materials. But there's nothing, just because it's an electric pickup doesn't mean there's something just like magical. It's translated into, even in a computer, if we're translating in zeros and ones, we space those zeros and ones with time and movement so that it replicates the materiality that we're experiencing in real life. It's just, go back to school.
I'm not as dramatic as you. Some change also can fine-tuning the sound, but you can't change the sound of the instrument. I agree. I remember one guy that wanted to have a custom set of pickups, and he started from the commercial ones, and you have so many different pickups with all these evaluation about the output power, the brightness. You have all these scales, and you have all this catalog with all these pages full of, and you have to choose one. Okay. And he changed a lot of them, but the guitar was always dull, always a close sound, a very dark sound. Then at the end, he changed the neck, and the guitar changed completely with the same pickups. So, obviously, they are part of the system. A lot of information, all the information pass through these pickups, so they have a weight on the system, but not as much as people can think. For electric guitar, I'm talking. Okay.
Yeah. I had the. I think it's okay to share this story. I'm going to share it. Uli, if you're listening and I shouldn't share this story, I'm sorry. But so Uli Teufel made an anniversary birdfish in gold and brought it to the Holy Grail Guitar Show. And this guitar had a mahogany neck for the first time ever on a birdfish.
The 20th anniversary.
The 20 or 25th anniversary.
I remember.
Yeah. And it had a mahogany neck for the very first time, a flame mahogany neck. But a mahogany neck, not the traditional bird's eye maple, which has always been on the Teufel birdfish. And for those of you who don't know what a Teufel birdfish is, it's a guitar where you can change out the components. There's two tone bars on it, which act like the body wood, the tonewood, and you can change it from alder to maple, and you get a substantial difference. The maple has a faster attack, a cleaner sound. The alder has a little slower attack, a little more, less mid-range. As you would expect an alder body to a maple body, for those of you who don't believe that it's all about the pickups. So anyways, when you change these tone bars, you really get a big difference. So he had me play this birdfish, which I've played many of. I've dealt with Uli for many, many years. And I went and played it. I came back. I said, it's an interesting guitar. It's not a birdfish. And he said, what? What do you mean? I said, this mahogany neck has made the whole thing very dark, very smooth, but this is such a substantial difference in your guitar that you should make it very, very clear to a customer that this is another instrument. And the only difference was the neck, which is not such a big neck on a birdfish either. It's a headless guitar. It's just and there's not much of a joint. It's a small piece of wood, comparatively speaking. No big headstock like a 70s Strat or anything,
It's fundamental.
It's absolutely fundamental. And he went back to the workshop and he actually changed it. He was like, you're right. This is so different. And he still makes a mahogany outside looking, but actually it's like 2 millimeters thick with a maple core in it. Yeah,
this is the secret.
I mean, it's not a secret. He doesn't hide that. He's very open about the things that he does. He doesn't hide it. But the point is, with this guitar, you could change the tone woods of the body so you could get the different results. But that's one part of the system. And so, again, the neck, just like you said, can be such a substantial part of the system that you can take a very normal guitar like a Telecaster or a Stratocaster and change it from one piece of maple to another piece of maple carved in the same way, and you will get possibly actually a different result. If you change the wood altogether to mahogany neck from a maple neck, you get a huge difference. And one of the biggest mistakes that young guitar makers make in this day and age, here's your tip, guys, young guitar makers who are listening, fretboards. Oh my God, they're way too thick on so many young guitar makers. Like, it's just like Leo Fender's fretboards were so thin, he was bending them onto the necks. The necks were radiused, and he was bending that piece of rosewood. And sometimes the fret tang was thicker than the rosewood was. If you look at the fret tang, you look inside, you can see the maple, right? And we have this big mistake. And then you end up with a really heavy neck. You end up with a lot of top end response because the neck is now overly stiff and too heavy. So you get this very treble response and not enough warmth out of it and such. So I totally agree with you on the neck side of things, and those are some.
In fact, I don't like exotic woods for necks. Mm-hmm. I've done some of my submodels with, for example, rosewood and ziricote that are wonderful for the fretboard, but as you said, with a limited thickness of too much, it's too stiff. The weight, also the weight is very important, and these necks are too fat. The weight is too much for the transmission of vibration.
So let's talk about that for a second, because I once asked you a question about what your education as a structural engineer informed, or how it informed your guitar making, and your response was that you knew that you needed a central a mass at the neck joint.
Yes.
And would you explain that for our listeners for a second? Why did you know, and because you're a structural engineer, why did you know that you needed a central mass, I think you called it?
I mean, I have to anticipate this. One of the fascinating thing of studying structural engineers, it's that at a certain point, with experience, with all the challenges that you have every day, you can really see the strain, the tension, the forces inside a structure. It's at a certain point I didn't realize from the beginning, but it's really fascinating because you can look at a structure and really understand how he moves and where are the more stressed part. You can almost feeling them. It's quite fascinating because at the end they are inside the structure, but you can't see physically. But with experience, you can understand how big these tension, these strains are. So looking at the guitar, this point was for me really fundamental, because it's the point where two different parts, because I imagine I have this feeling. For me, I think that the bolt-on guitars are more pleasant for me for the sound. I prefer the bolt-on guitars with the neck that's attached. It's a separated part, no the glued one or the true neck, the guitars. And thinking about these two different parts connected together, this has to be a more a point that has to stay stiff and still, right there. It has not to move. And in this way, you can allow to the other parts, in this case the body and the neck, to move. More in a more efficient way. Let's say so. So the idea behind was to have a sort of another nodal points. Obviously, the weight it's fundamental here, because the strings are. It's more difficult for the strings to move this part in there, considering the entire system.
Yeah. Is there a ratio that you look for?
Sorry?
Is there a ratio that you look for? Because your body woods change. So because your body wood changes and your neck would change, but not necessarily the dimensions of your neck, are you looking for a related ratio between the weight of the material on the body side related to the weight of the material on the neck side, or is there some other factors you're...
No. I never investigated this aspect. No. Okay. I started, probably I found, or I will find the best solution, because it's always a step by step, also after 10 years of perfection this system. But no, I have no a specific ratio between the weight of the two. I only know that I have to maintain this part as fixed as possible.
Yeah. So people talk a lot about neck stiffness, and I've had a few people, there's a lot of solutions about neck stiffness and what they need for the stiffness of the neck. And I've had a few people bring to me new solutions for these recently that I probably can't talk about. But nonetheless, they're working under the assumption that the most stiff neck is the best neck, that they're looking for maximum stiffness. I'm not sure how I feel about that, actually. I'm not convinced yet.
I agree in part. I agree in part, because also for me the neck has to be stiff, but it has also to be light. Otherwise, you can use, as we said before, exotic woods that are very, very stiff, but the weight is useless for this part. I mean, if the neck is, for me, it's very stiff, but light. The strings are, it's more easy for the string to transmit vibrations.
Yes, exactly. And so density is a part of the equation. So high stiffness with relatively low density to be lighter.
To obtain, a good sound, then we can discuss what is a good sound. Yes. Otherwise, I've seen also marble guitars.
Yes.
they are very stiff. I think that they are very stiff.
Yes, yes.
I think that probably they weight a lot. But
Yes.
at the end,
I've never seen a completely marble guitar. I've seen guitars with marble elements, marble tops.
no.
But not
I've seen also
100% marble.
the 100%. Yes.
And did it
It
function?
was probably a company that make graveyards for the
tombstones,
cemetery.
we say. Yes, or grave markers. Yes,
owner is has a passion for guitars and decided.
Yes.
So let's make in Italy, near here, probably in Vicenza, 40 kilometers from here. Yes, I don't remember, but I have seen also the frets. Everything was made.
Really? Okay. Because the Pagellis made a marble top guitar a number of years ago,
Yes.
and it was the owner of a quarry, like the place where they take the stone from the mountains. It was the owner of the quarry that commissioned the guitar, and
Yes.
and Mirko Borghino here in Italy also has done something with an arch top, but it's mainly a wooden guitar, And
Yes, probably he makes the back and the sides. I don't remember. He made a wonderful guitar. That one was a masterpiece. Yes, also. But it makes sense to make some parts. Also, Pagelli's top, the marble top was amazing, and it has sense.
Yeah, I played that guitar. I was there when they released that guitar in the Frankfurt Music Messe, and I've played that guitar. The structure of it was quite different. They attached the strings to the tail block. So the strings passed over the bridge and down through the body, and you loaded them from the tail block. So it was connected more to the wood in the back on this instrument. It sounded. It did work as a guitar. It wasn't the sound that you get from a D28 or something like this. But it still sounded, and it was very interesting that way. I've recently been obsessed with marble because I'm looking for Carrara marble countertops in a table. but when I start to think about it, I think about the Lardo also, which they make in the white marble casks, and it's probably an indication that it's too close to lunchtime right now. Jamie's starting to think about the Lardo. But materiality.
From marble to Lardo. From marble to Lardo. The step is very close.
Very close. Very close.
It's very interesting that one. It's very fascinating because Claudio and Claudia Pagelli use this. Not as you know, I've made these 6,000 years old wood guitars.
Yeah.
But that one, the top was made with these millions years old. So it's really fascinating.
Yes.
You take this very thing. I don't remember the thickness if he used also braces or not.
There were wooden braces in that guitar. That was a real challenge to merge these materials together.
But it's very fascinating to have this millions years old piece on the guitars.
Yes. Yeah. That's a different. That's actually another sort of evolution of material, isn't it? So when you have a very old material like that, it gains stiffness, it gains density, over time. And I've played a number of instruments which, have materials that are thousands of years old that are partly petrified sometimes. There was a bog oak bass from Jens Ritter many, many years ago. The first bog oak bass he made was in my art gallery and in my hands at one point in time. And that was a fascinating piece that he did things to make it less efficient because the material was very efficient, very dense, therefore a lot of high energy. But back to the early parts of our conversation, he actually lined the neck pocket of that instrument with cork. to really reduce the efficiency. So
really
he lined it,
that.
yeah. And his bridges were normally a bridge that was something like a tunematic with string ferrules loaded in the top, and so the strings were sitting on top and then up over the bridge. But on this one, he used like a spring steel, and the bridge was around the back of the instrument and wrapped around the front, something like an archtop bridge, again to make a less efficient contact, because this material was just way too efficient on energy transfer, and you had to slow it down somehow. That's another couple of solutions that you have. As I said, he lined the neck pocket with cork. Everybody would say this is all totally wrong, but that instrument still had tons and tons of sustain. It was a fretless bass that just had an incredible amount of sustain. 5-string fretless, just over and over again. And, that's, to your point, the first part is design. Next part is materials. The first part is design. The next part is materials. Yes. And so that's a really good point.
I mean, probably before the design, it's the idea that you have, where you want to go. I mean, not completely, but you have to have a vision of what you want to go, and then the design, obviously.
Sure, it starts with an idea.
Yeah.
Of course. So actually, this is an interesting one. So I once heard how to explain Olafur Eliasson. He's a studio in Berlin, but also one in Reykjavik. He's a Danish, Icelandic, German artist who does experiential work a lot. Really interesting stuff. He made a rainbow under the Brooklyn Bridge, as part of his work, a waterfall underneath the Brooklyn Bridge. That was an installation piece, and he's done like a big rising sun inside the museum in London. He's done really amazing things. And anyways, Olafur describes inspiration and the problem that we have. That inspiration, we have the spark, the thought, the inspiration, the moment. And then immediately we have a problem because the idea has no words. And then we have to translate the inspiration into words. And so it immediately changes because our words are simply not enough. And so the idea, that initial inspiration, begins to meet reality and immediately changes. And then, so we have to form it with words. And then we have to, if it's a made object like a guitar, then we have to put it under the conditions and limitations of our materials and of our know-how. Often our education and how we know is a defining part of the design,
Yes.
And the interesting thing about it is that, one, it helps you understand that limitations and experience shape every design, but also there's an underlying bit of sadness because you realize that we've never seen pure inspiration.
No,
it's changed immediately.
It changed immediately. No, yes.
In its first moments, it's corrupted. It's like original sin. In the first moments, it's corrupted because of the environment around it. And this is it's.
Yes, and probably that's the ability of the craftsman, of the artist, to limit this gap. But I agree that we are trying to connect, for me, two different levels. And on one level, there are all these ideas, all these concepts there. For me, they are all there. Mm-hmm. And the most difficult thing is that, everything is out there. So the problem is that is everything. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot. There's an infinite quantity of ideas.
Everything's a lot. Yeah.
It's out. So it's not here. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's not, you have to bring here and there, where? So you have to to understand where to find them. So it's very difficult. Sometimes it's frustrating. Yes, I know it very well. I tried with some the guitars that I have made that was not on customer order, that you have on the boutique guitar showcase tour, like the Namaste, for example, the Eudemonia, all the guitars. I tried to connect these two levels, but it's difficult. It's not easy. Or at least to transfer to the audience all these informations, all these.
Yes.
You have probably to explain, always to explain. Otherwise, it's not impossible, but it's very difficult to work on the not conscious part. No, when you look at one thing. Probably also for this, less is better.
Maybe. More. I don't know. Of course, I'm so stimulated by those instruments when you make them, and I learn something from them. And frankly, I think that that's actually a very strong model. You know, it's when we're not trying to, I've said for years, I'm not trying to sell guitars. I'm trying to change the way the world thinks about guitar.
Yeah.
And as a result, this is a strange thing to say about myself out loud, but as a result, I've had many, many people in my life come to me and say, you know, you completely changed the way I think about, or the way I approach my own guitar. And I'm a better musician because of it, you know, because of the shift in the thinking, you know, and I think and I've had experiences with your guitars. Many experiences. One of the reasons I love working with you so much is I find it engages me not just in the physical sense, it engages me in the intellectual and also in the emotional sense. And this is, you know, the head, the heart, the hands, this is the whole human that's happening. And we get the strongest impact when we can engage the head, heart, and hands. And so when you can pick up a musical instrument which causes you to think and causes you to feel, that you can physically interact with, I mean, this is the trifecta. And I've received emails from customers who came to one of our events on the Boutique Guitar Showcase who said, I came thinking I was going to see some nice guitars, and I left a changed person. I went home and I looked up the philosophical concept of eudaimonia because of Enrico Di Donato's guitar, and this concept that something can achieve this sort of ideal sort of space, which we could translate to our earlier conversation, that we have this idea about less and more, and that less is bad when we say less efficient and more efficient is good, but we don't mean it that way. There's the right amount, you know, and eudaimonia is that. You're neither moving fast nor slow. You're just moving the right amount for what you need to fulfill the purpose. Right? And so they come to an event thinking they're going to see some cool guitars, and they go home and they are sitting there contemplating philosophical concepts because they interacted with one of your instruments. And it's not just that, you know, there's pop art pieces you made, like the Kill Bill piece or Dante's pieces. And, you know, 2 days ago, I was standing in front of Dante's house thinking about you, by the way. You've not just made guitars, Enrico. You've changed the way that I think, and when you change the way that someone thinks, you've changed the world. And that's too lofty, but I think that's ideal.
I try. I always try this. So thank you. It was unexpected, but this is because I really don't understand and don't agree from the beginning this with the fact that the guitar is a tool. For me, it's not, and it has not to be a tool. I try to do something that even if it's on the wall, Obviously, it has to play
To function. Yes.
the best as it can. The sound has to be as good as possible. I'm not debating for it's something that it's this and no discussion, but it has also to transfer some emotions, even if it's on the wall, unplayed from the beginning. It has to tell you something. So if I've realized this, I'm happy. I think that I have done something more.
Yeah. And you have. Well done.
Thank you. I repeat. I try every time. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
Also because I like to change the topics to sometimes something more, as we discussed, pop oriented, and something a little bit more. Now that I'm getting older, probably I'm more oriented on the other parts. I don't know.
Wonderful. Enrico, thank you so much for being on Life with Strings Attached.
Thank you, Jenny.
It's been great. Is there something that you'd hope to discuss today that if I were a better interviewer, I might have asked you?
No. It was really fine. It was a really pleasant discussion. I'm quite very happy about this. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, great. Well, thank you for making inspiring guitars. Thank you for being you. To be honest, my life is better for knowing you, for the concepts you've exposed me to, and honestly, for the time we've spent together, for lunches at Luca's and times at Santa Bevatore and everything in between.
Yeah,
I really appreciate the effect that you've had on.
Thank you for having me.
So
thank you.
Yeah.
I hope that you come to Venice.
I hope so too. I think maybe not so long.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe
I will wait for you.
Maybe next weekend. What time is it? It's only a 3-hour drive. It's not so bad.
It's right. You are not so far from you. Yes.
Not so far anymore.
More or less.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are you doing for lunch? Come on down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right, Enrico. Well, listen, for those of you who are listening, Enrico and I are going to talk for another 5 or 10 minutes on the business of guitar, which we move on our Patreon platform because, well, honestly, it's inside business talk, which is not relevant to all of you. And for those who are in the guitar business, we get to talk about things that maybe shouldn't be public discussion by doing it over there on our Patreon. So if you want to listen to the business of guitar, please head over to patreon.com/business of guitar. And that's patreon.com/business of guitar. We'll see you there. And thanks for listening to Life with Strings Attached. Thanks, Enrico. Ciao for now.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Jamie. Ciao.
Thank you for watching and listening. You can find more episodes wherever you listen to your podcasts. And a special thanks to those who support us on Patreon. It's your support that enables us to do this work.